There we go. So you can see the 14th Amendment, which is naturalization, distinguished from nationalization, deals with foreign aliens in another political jurisdiction. This is why Noble Drew Ali said, declare your nationality. It brings you out of that straw status of the 14th Amendment. It is your right. It is your duty to claim it. It is not an option, except if you want to be a subject of the United States corporation operations, which is what's been happening to our people. I.e., so in the divine warning, the prophet said what? Since that constitution has never changed, you see the whole point? But they changed it, didn't they? You see the point? He knew that when you studied, you would find that out. And so we're dealing with these problems we're dealing with today. And people on both sides have been deceiving our people and promoting or capitalizing on the injury of our people with a bunch of corrupt processes that they've been selling to you for hundreds and thousands of notes, pretending that they would solve the problem when the Prophet Noble Drew Ali solved the problem in the first place. All we needed to do was carry out the law like he told us to. And this is again why many criminals among our own keep misrepresenting Prophet Noble Drew Ali, saying that he's not a prophet, saying that he didn't set up government correctly, etc. He told you that the half has not been told. And he told you that people among your own was trying to put you back into servitude. However, due to the operations and things that are taking place now, the consciousness of the people I was raising, even these people around you are now being exposed. This is again why a lot of them are angry too. But they can't stop what's coming now, because all of this stuff is being exposed, including them. And what I read to you is documented fact. It's not opinion, documented fact. So how can Dred Scott, who's clearly of Moorish descent, be a U.S. corporate citizen when the corporation is a conglomerate of corporations owned by the Pope of Rome, registered in Austria, and operating at North America under treaty, which they've been breaching and violating? So the plaintiff was in error, wasn't he? Oh, yes, he was. And we're sitting around talking about racism. And you see the problem with how they have actually distorted the narrative, Dr. Naila, and we've been actually begging to be slaves and subjects to a foreign corporation, thinking it's a country, because it hasn't dawned on us yet the clarification of these semantic deceits. And people among our own have been misrepresenting it to us. And this is back to some of the conversation that we had earlier when I was telling you how people have been misrepresenting Noble Drew Ali and then accusing him of violating us when actually he set us on the course of study that we would liberate ourselves. That's why he said, if I could just get you all thinking again, you'd free yourselves. Why do you think members of the Bar Association infiltrated the Moorish movement, and then they also had people work with them infiltrate the Moorish movement and start selling people different processes for $3,400, and talking about they're going to do trust, etc., for people rather than tell them the truth? Because you can't play on the opposite side of the chessboard and win. The fraud abounds among us, Dr. Naila. But again, and this is back to if we can get our people to really start looking at these things and comprehending, they can vet these people from among us and root them out, because they're part of the problem. Why do you think all of a sudden, Dr. Naila, a lot of the agents that were placed among us are now exposing themselves openly and trying to discredit Prophet Noble Drew Ali? Because of the economic pressures of the banking systems that are collapsing. Remember I said about 4 years ago, I said for everybody watch Deutsche Bank?
Yes, I remember.
I suggest now watch Deutsche Bank and watch the things that take place. I said it 4 or 5 years ago, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you did.
And many people around us that we thought was helpful, their economics are going to be kind of interrupted. And so you see them coming out of the woodwork, pulling their mask off openly. Now they're openly trying to misrepresent Noble Drew Ali, aren't they? They're not even hiding it, are they? Because their coins, their dedonuses they see the threat. See, because they produce nothing else. Keep this in mind. Everybody that came into the Moorish movement is not really for uplifting fallen humanity. Many people came into this movement for the specific purpose of pretending to be friends with the intention of trying to undermine the divine national movement. Everything is infiltrated. So let's get that clear. That is the operation of COINTELPRO. That's automatic. The deal of it is, how do you vet? How do you make distinctions between who's who? That's why it's important that we share these words and phrases and also these principles with you redundantly, so that a lot of the questions wouldn't even come up if the people really comprehended or understood what we've been telling them for 40 years. And many people come in at different points of time. However, the fundamental principles don't change. This is why you see me not getting tempted to be distracted on a lot of different things, because you already know yourself. I have a lot of information, a lot of books. I have a lot of knowledge on a lot of things, a lot of disciplines, but you'll see me focus on certain things redundantly, because if you don't fix the foundation, everything else falls apart. Right. And if people get the foundation, most of the other stuff, it becomes obvious and you don't need the questions. It's about liberating people. It's not about making followers.
And I've been around you long enough now, 10 years, to like you said, when you said, had you not said something about Dushabak, watch Dushabak, several things that you cautioned and warned us about, in the last 10 years, I've seen come to pass. And this is like, it was all leading up to, what they say, the time that we're in now, for such a time as this. But you said it when it didn't even seem, when there was no clouds in the sky, you said it was going to rain.
And this is by meaning that if you have certain reference points that people aren't paying attention to, right? You look at patterns, things become obvious. Like cause and effect, 2 and 2 makes 4. You don't, if somebody says 2 and 2 makes 3.5, you can doubt that, right? Well, 2 and 2 makes 4. You can kind of stand on that wherever you are, if you comprehend. And once you comprehend or know, like we've been telling people for years, and you know how much criticism we've gotten from people so-called conscious, and some people in temples and some people in other organizations, when we've been telling people for years that the United States is not a country, it's a private corporation. Recently, the people of that platform have been forced to admit it because they went bankrupt. But how many people came out and knocked us and criticized us and said we were lying when we told the people that the United States is not a country? And it came from people who you might consider grand governors of the Moorish Science Temple and other people who were happy to jump on and say, who them Tajites? As if I was making it up. That's established law, established information. However, not being taught to the people. And how many people have been injured over the years for not knowing that, and keep going into those venues looking for remedies when there is no remedy in your enemy. And then getting frustrated. And then rather than admitting that the enemy is in government, they would charge us for, oh, you wrote them papers and them papers got people in trouble. I.e. the truth got people in trouble, which is a warning so that you don't go into the... You tell them that's a doo-doo pool, don't jump in the doo-doo pool, you're going to stink. Oh, he shouldn't have said that. So you now got all these people stinking, they lost their homes, now they're losing jobs because they won't take the poison and everything, and all the stuff they was warned about. Noble Drew Ali said over 100 years ago, he says, there's a storm out there, and the people say there is no storm. And I, the prophet, said, There's a storm right on. Now we're in the storm. Now starting the hybrid Europeans admitting that there's a storm, isn't it?
Sure are.
Huh?
Yeah, they are.
Oh yeah. But you have other traitors among our own people keep saying he wasn't the prophet, don't they? Don't you?
Yes, we do.
However, his work proves that he don't need to defend the truth. The truth stands on its own, and it needs no apology. See, and it's like I said before, Dr. Nayo. Remember I said a couple of years ago, I said all masks are off? It's in government, it's in education, it's in the banking system, and it's in people around you. Why? Because they can't hide but so long. They got to start coming out because they got to show their allegiances, don't they?
That's right.
Because that's where their taffies are coming from, their little payoffs, isn't it? So they can't pretend but so long. Because what did the Roman cure members say? Look, you're going to have to start kind of knocking this and slowing this stuff down and discrediting this stuff, or you won't get your little kickback in the background. So some people you thought your friends will have been secretly your enemy all the time. However, they serve their purposes like everybody else does. You know, like I used to always say, Dr. Nayo said, you know, I ain't trying to prove anything to anyone. I'm doing what my mother sent me to do. They got to do what their mother sent them to do. More power to them. See who wins the chess game. However, as the people are waking up, the people are going to do what? By the nature of their injury, be clear on who their alliances should actually be. You won't have to convince them of anything. You know how I say, remember I used to always say, Dr. Naila, I said, our people are going to come together not for lack of information or lack of will of men and women out there who have been sacrificing their personal lives to help uplift fallen humanity. They're going to come together out of pain. They're getting it now, aren't they? Aren't they?
Yes, yes, they are.
And so many people are becoming conscious. Why? They're losing their homes, they're losing their accounts, they're losing their jobs, they're losing all sense of security, and all the institutions that they've trusted are failing them, aren't they? It's creating pain, isn't it? Great teacher, isn't it? Pain is a great teacher. So don't have to argue about whether we don't understand where you're coming from. You need to guide us by the hand and change our diapers. No, the hybrid's going to teach you. Rome's teaching you. Lord, many of us have been losing weight, ain't we? But we ain't been to Jenny Craig's. Because they're taking all your stuff, just like I told you they would. Now we can decide to come together and honor our mothers and fathers and start enforcing the Constitution like the prophet said, because the Constitution is really a portal to other ancient divine law. It's not the instrument itself, it's the principles behind it. Why do you think so many people around us were so upset when we started talking about constitutions? Because those dark priests know it's a portal. It's a political portal. So you don't look at the portable, you look at what's on the other side of it. A portal is only a passageway, isn't it? Isn't it? It serves a purpose, doesn't it? But it is not the thing, is it? Passage is not the goal, is it? Passage is what? Just what it says, passage. It's temporal. But its purpose is to go to another dimension or plane, isn't it? Whether abstract or political, Constitution is a portal. And this is where a lot of, criminals among us got tricked. They thought we were talking about the Constitution physically itself, weren't they? But we're talking dimensional portals. Called the higher plane of life, higher plane of thought. The conditions change. As the people change, their conditions change. And many people pass through the portal, many people don't. So we have a situation of controversy where If people don't ascend, they will be clearly destroyed, won't they? On many levels, won't they? And it's becoming clearer and more obvious, isn't it? Isn't it?
Here's a comment. I just want you to address it. Listening says Trump is selling us to pay his loans back. Sorry, guys.
It's interesting, but false.
I know. We so misguided on that one. That was not.
Trump is assigned, which I told you all a couple of years ago, by the military. What is called Q was set up by Abraham Lincoln, the last lawful president for the United States, the Republic, which was overthrown in 1861, i.e., and it is actually a small order of officials whose missionary work has been to counter the dark priesthood and to restore the Republic. And Trump, in this day, is a part of that operation, assigned by some parts of the military that have been loyal to the Constitution for the United States, distinguished from the conversion of estates via the Constitution of the United States corporate operations of the Circle Church and Chancery. And this is the clash that you see taking place.
But they're fighting over our stuff.
Yeah, again, didn't I always say? I said Trump is assigned.
Yes.
Didn't I say that for the last few years?
Yes, you did.
His assignment is not for him to either be worshipped or praised or anything. He has a military mission of helping to restore the Republic, because the nations of the earth, didn't we say years ago that they was going to stop trading with them? And we say they're going to have a feedback loop with the treasury bonds that they trade with around the world. You need to look at these things, because you can't say you haven't been told, because you've been told. It's just that now it's hitting every... You know what it is, Dr. Naila? Now that it's becoming more and more open and the masks are off, people can no longer deny what is happening to all of us.
We're all feeling it.
Hmm?
We're all feeling it.
And guess what? And what's happening is they're only opening up a few pages, but it's obvious that they're opening up more pages of kick-ass, aren't they?
Yeah. Remember what I told you yesterday?
Yes.
About my friend?
Yes.
Somebody we mutually know? I mean,
you know,
we can't even say what it is because
how much whoop ass cans do they need to take off the shelf and open up to convince these people that they're your enemy and not your government?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, it's sort of like, you know, they talk about the Stockholm syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Among our people, we got it in spades. It's almost like every card is a spade. I mean, and then you can see in some ways how the enemy of humanity is actually contemptuous of us due to the fact that we won't even use common sense. When the evidence is there and indisputable, we keep trying to find excuses to get around taking responsibility of reclaiming our estate, but while crying the blues about our estates being stolen.
But we need to do it quickly because our children are being targeted. So when you go out to the young, when you go away, but in this instance, when you go all the way out to the younger children, that means that you're trying to cut off the future. You're going to cut off the future if that's what you.
Remember what I said years ago, Dr. Naila, when I said our people always talk about they don't fear nobody but Allah, they don't fear nobody but Jesus, they don't fear nobody but God. And the reality, everybody in their dog news, that the so-called Negro God is the hybrid European. They won't buy or sell without a license or mark or number of his name, and that's who they fear.
Yeah.
But nobody's supposed to say it. And everything relative to these people claiming their right and their birthright, what is the first thing comes out of their mouth? Yeah, I won't do that because they're going to do this to you. and they're going to take this from you, and they're going to fire you from your job, and they're going to take your house. You're going to get in trouble. Who do they fear? They fear the hybrid European. They don't fear no Jesus, God, Allah. They're lying. And the deal of it is the experience is proving it, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And so when they look in the book of Revelation that they won't buy or sell without the mark or the number of the beast, it's proving to be true, isn't it?
Yeah, it's true.
So who would stand up against those principalities and powers? Who would make a stand? So that's what's being deciphered now. So you're getting the separation of the wheat from the chaff. Those who are sincerely for the uplifting of fallen humanity, and those who have really been secretly against. All masks are off, which is what we talked about a couple of years ago. Because the feedback loop is on, and what's happening? The snake is eating his own tail, ain't he?
Mm-hmm.
Remember that snake in the history books?
Right.
You see it broke up, eating his own tail? Mm-hmm. Said, don't tread on me, don't it? Something like that, right? Mm-hmm. So all these symbolisms are there, but they're present too, aren't they?
Yeah.
So therefore, people in their consciousness of timeline is also been twisted, hasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So now they're, in order to fix this thing, they're going to have to correct the calendars too, aren't they? People don't even know that they've been.
I heard we had like 1,000 years added on or something.
Well,
like
remember what we said? Remember what we said right here in the treaty book, right? Look at this, right? Look at the treaty book, right? When you talk about the treaty, so the treaty was ratified by President Arthur St. Clair of the United States Republic in the year 1787, which corresponds with 1200. There it is in the treaty book.
Okay.
So if it's corresponding, so if it corresponds, so that means
that's like 500 years, right?
That means that 1787 is actually 1200. Didn't I put it in the book? Ain't it there? Ain't it there? Right there?
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, I see it now. Which means I see it.
Oh, so have they been told? So now to fix stuff, they got to start fixing a lot more than they've been telling the people have, don't they?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but Taji's been making this stuff up, right? You know, you don't have to argue about truth, because guess what? When stuff falls apart, all masks go off, ain't they?
Yeah.
Aren't they?
No, treaty book's not. No, the treaty book's not on the flash drive. They wanted to know what book you were referencing, but yeah. Treaty of Peace and Friendship, Constitution for the United States of America, 1786, 1787, 1836.
Superseded. Now, and that's what? Just before the ratification of the Constitution for the United States, isn't it? So we are what? The true beneficiaries and heirs, aren't we? Remember I always said, why they've been violating the Constitution? To supersede and to undermine their obligations to the superseding treaty. There you go. So your experience is now being proved to you. I don't have to keep convincing you of anything. You know the funny thing, how people keep wanting you to apologize for telling the truth just because some people aren't on it, or some people aren't familiar, or some people are not using their intuitive mind and looking at things like they really are. And because you're willing to talk openly about it, they accuse you of making stuff up. And then when it manifests itself, they still want to find a way to discredit truth. Well, truth don't need an apology. It is what it is.
Sure.
Doo-doo stinks. So what? Get some perfume.
Truth hurts, but sometimes
it's what it is.
Yeah, if the pain moves you, then that's what needs to happen.
It's hard for all of us. Just because you're aware of certain things doesn't make you absent from it.
Right. Doesn't make it easier.
It doesn't. It's just that some people are willing to tell the truth, and some people want to hide it or be in denial. Denial doesn't fix things, and we've been in denial for generations. And it's cost us dearly. And so what you see as we share information with people, the greatest difficulty you have with people is them coming out of their denial and not admitting that they're in denial. Because it's ugly. Plus, we start recognizing that part of our problem is our own hypocrisy. It's not just that the hybrid European is taking advantage of it, it's also that we're supreme hypocrites and have helped create this farce that we're all suffering from. And then to admit that people around us, friends that we call friends and families, are actually traitors. It's what it is. Get over it and let's start dealing with it. Let's start cleaning up this mess. We're going to have to. It's like this, Dr. Naila, when it gets to the point that the stuff is so dirty and raggedy, it's falling apart. Like somebody who lets their roof leak for years because they don't want to spend the finance, but they buy a new car every year and stuff like that. And they won't spend, a couple thousand to fix their roof, but now the whole house is ruined. And this is basically what's happened to us politically. In a sense, we've neglected the truth of our status and our lost estate. And even 100 some odd years, they didn't really want to listen to Noble Drew Ali, even spent more time trying to discredit him, and everything he said has come in true, point for point. And they still don't want to acknowledge that he's the prophet. It's not worshiping him, it's acknowledging his work. And truth don't need an apology. And I'm not apologizing. And this is one of the reasons over the years, Dr. Naila, that, I wouldn't take no payoff. I've sacrificed and lived a very simple life and continued to do this work. And they can't buy me.
I don't know that this question has been put in here like several times, and I've ignored it only because you're not talking about this, but someone asked about how information to get their property back. I know that's not something that you can address and what.
This is back to why I've been saying to everyone. Article 3, Section 2 deals with the judicial powers of the people having been granted to the United States in their operations in a consular venue relative to persons and property, etc. That is the venue. However, which we've been telling people for years, Eisenhower closed down and it relinquished jurisdiction from 54 to 56 in that area. And this is why they've been deceiving people about the political jurisdiction of the Kingdom of Morocco, distinguished from the subdivision that it is to the Moroccan Empire that George Washington talked about, etc. And we, the people of the land, the true nationals, have been spending generations marching around trying to be Negro citizens under the civil rights, which is the false venue, the same false venue idea of the Dred Scott issue, trying to be a citizen of the corporation rather than enforcing the treaties. And we have become subjects by rules of naturalization, even though you don't have a naturalization card. You've never been through the process, etc. And you've been assumed, i.e., booty and prize under what is called prize courts.